Okay, we're live.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. And today we are going to talk about the 7 proven ways to boost your business agility. And by the way, stay until the end. It is going to be very, very interesting. And also, we have prepared some bonuses for you, which we are going to reveal at the end of the webinar. So here we go. I'm Anna Zakoyan, and I'm the founder and CEO of Prime Project. I'm an agile coach, consultant, and trainer. And at Prime Project, actually, we help companies to transform how their teams collaborate and how the work gets done. I'm a certified Scrum professional. I have more than 50 years of experience in the field, and the amount of projects that we have completed is, let's say, 50 plus, 100 teams coached, and around 5,000 people trained. And Anna, hi, Anna.
Hi, everyone. Hi,
Hey.
everyone. I'm Anna Hambarian. I am a Scrum Master and a project manager with a solid 7 years of experience in IT industry. My work includes mainly helping teams on their journey in agile transformation and Scrum framework adoption. I worked with more than 10 teams and successfully completed more than 20 international projects, helping successfully deliver major software projects, e-commerce platforms, and even complex AI solutions for international businesses. And I'm excited to present in today's webinar.
Yeah, and by the way, we are working with Anna for maybe 5 or 6 years, right?
Yes,
We are
somewhere
working in
around
the
there.
same team. Yeah, yeah. Okay, and we are actually ready to share with you our experience. And so let's move on. Before we go into the tips, let's just start with this comparison of traditional versus agile organizations, so that it is more relevant when we get to the tips. So let's say in the traditional organization, what do we have? We have usually a hierarchy in terms of the structure, and we have the reporting that goes from down to up to the management. We have functional silos, and again, we have the strategies and decisions, rules, and power coming from the top. If we compare it with the agile organization, actually it is a little bit different, because here the teams and roles are organized in a way that there is a huge collaboration, and there is no top down. So everyone is involved in the decision making, in the strategies. There is a huge cooperation, and actually the teams are, and the positions and roles are structured in a way that they provide this end-to-end value delivery. And of course, there is a big focus on the leadership. Why do we need this? Actually, here comes the business agility, a term that is really common in nowadays, because business agility, where if we just take it in a nutshell, it is the ability to change and adapt internally and externally to the market changes without sacrificing the quality. And this is essential for every type of business nowadays, no matter whether you are a small startup or you are already like a big organization, established one. Being fast and being adaptive and being a learning organization is something that will move you closer to your goals. So what do we have as a return of doing these changes within your organizations? First of all is the return on investment. It is much faster. You have rapid innovation, adaptable teams, reduced risk. You have faster releases of your product or service. And of course, if you are involving your customers in this process, then they are more happy with your product. Your employees, your teams are happier and motivated with what they do. And of course, in the core, we have this value that we are creating for our customers. So everyone on your teams or in your organization know that whatever they do, they are creating this value for the end users and for the company as a whole. So this is like business agility in a nutshell. And as you can see, it is like it affects all of the parts, all of the fields within the organization. So it is not related only to the product development teams. So let's move on with our tips. And the tip number one, knowing who your users are is not enough. So let me just elaborate on this more. Um, Usually, especially in the established companies, we have a lot of stakeholders. And sometimes the stakeholders are actually the ones that are providing us with the information about our users, about what do they need. And that's why sometimes this information can be really like a personal attitude or personal perceptions, personal vision. Sometimes even the stakeholders might be bewildered with what the actual users want, and especially in big organizations, sometimes this part is really neglected. And we do not have this in startups because usually we work directly with the end users. But again, do not forget that getting access to your real users is essential here. The other thing is, no matter whether you are a startup or an established company, you should always practice your hypothesis, your problems and solutions that you are giving. You should do this validation constantly because market is changing, your users are changing, their needs are changing. So it is not only you have created this in the beginning and then just you stop it because you already know what your users want. But tools like tools like Lean Startup Machine or anything else that you find appropriate might help you in this. Regarding the milestones, your product delivery or service delivery milestones, again, they should be based not on your perceptions, what do you actually think, but on the validated data from your users. And again, this is really important to make it work for you. If we just summarize, involve your customers early and often. Many companies are doing user interviews constantly. They are using some systems like NPS or anything else, or doing surveys. But usually, like having a 30-minute or 50-minute call with your real end users is much more beneficial than doing a lot more surveys. And this is based on our experience. Active collaboration is much more appreciated here. So let's move to the tip number two. By the way, Anna, if you have any comments here, please just, you are free to do so if you want to add anything else. Yeah,
for sure. And I just remembered, I think the best example I can think of here, and I agree with all of the tips, and the best example I can think of is one of the product owners that I actually worked with always said that if you really want to know your user, you have to sit down with them face to face. You cannot base your assumptions on your own vision or your stakeholder vision or even the data you receive. So really taking time to have dedicated user interview session, or even something informal like having a coffee once a week with your user can be a way to truly understand who they are. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Morning coffee or evening
exactly.
coffee.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, definitely. That's true. So let's move to the tip number two. And it is related to your product objectives. So set product objectives with clear outcomes. Again, a lot of companies have their product objectives, but in our practice, we have seen and heard so many things like, I want to release a great product, or I want to increase my user base, or something like this. This type of sentences are not actually objectives. Let's just face it. When you are dealing with users, with data, with goals, then you have to be really specific. So how exactly are you going to measure these objectives? This is the next important question. So again, if we elaborate more, setting meaningful product milestone and sprint goals is really essential. Again, if your objective is related to profit, then something like increasing profit by 10% might make sense, but just increasing profit is not an objective. If you are setting your sprint goals, again, something like, complete all the stories or all the PBIs within the sprint cannot be a sprint goal, because it does not give a focus to the team and to the involved people, what actually we are going to see at the end of the sprint. So it should be something related to the product, one piece of it, and it should act as a lighthouse, for everyone. So what we are going to deliver. And this is also going to help your team and everyone involved to understand where they are in terms of their sprint. Are they reaching the goal? Are there any risks that might just, stop us from reaching it? So setting this is really crucial. Taking care of your product roadmap is the next tip here, because again, everyone might have a product roadmap, but first thing that I want to say here, we should know that it is not baselined, of course, because changes might come like today, tomorrow, the other month. So we should be ready to deal with these changes. But if your roadmap is not complete in terms of your vision, how you see the growth, how you see the development of the product, then you will be constantly finding yourself in a situation where, okay, what is next? And if the management has these questions, then just imagine how many questions do the teams have, your employees, and this kind of situation create really very, very, very hard understanding of what we are creating, and that could be the reason why people say, okay, I'm just doing my tasks and that's it. So established in big companies, usually they have their roadmap, but again, it is not presented clearly and transparently to their employees, so they know what they are building. And on the other hand, in startups, for example, the roadmaps might miss, or they might be created in a very chaotic way, so that this chaotic approach also is represented on the team and employee level. And the final thing here is that changes can be done if they contribute to the overall goals. Again, regarding the changes. When we talk about agility and agile in general, and we say that we welcome changes, this does not usually mean that you can just include every type of change that someone is coming up with, because otherwise you won't be able to complete anything. Here we talk about the changes that are really value driven. They contain a value and they contribute to your overall goals. So if we summarize again, I would say that you should balance your product objectives and changing priorities. And Anna, again, if you have any comments here. please do so. Yeah.
Yes, I would just like to add here that I see often that, for example, the product owners or the stakeholders find it hard to put specific goals, as you mentioned, or specific objectives. They find it pressures the teams, puts some pressure on them. But I would say that definitely you shouldn't be afraid of setting really specific product and milestone goals to, like you can get as specific as the features XYZ should be included in this milestone. And the more specific you get, the better your team will understand and be aligned on what has to be delivered, the better their focus will be. So don't be afraid to be specific.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, so the tip number 3 is about enabling agile roles and not job descriptions. Okay, here we are like shifting from the product part and entering more the HR and people operations part. But again, as I mentioned in the beginning, business agility is not only about the product development, it's about the whole organization and its adaptivity. So this tip is really, really important here because we have seen, Anna, you can confirm this, we have seen so many situations where people really do not know what they are doing, or they just say, this is my job description and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything else. So roles are really something that you should take care of. So again, if we go into details, in the beginning, I was talking about the organizational structures. The one thing that I would like here to say is that your organizational structure should be very flexible. It should be created based on the value that you are creating for your product. So it should create this ownership and focus towards it. For example, if you are creating, I don't know, R&D, then all the teams, that all the Scrum teams or whatever framework you are using, they should be structured in a way that each of the teams can provide some value for the product. Usually, I've seen in my experience that many companies are also including in these feature teams also like marketing and salespeople that are working on this specific product within this division or department or or teams, so that the end-to-end process of this product life cycle is not divided into many divisions. So it's something that you can think of, but again, ownership and focus is really important. Make sure that whenever you are creating these job descriptions, positions, or roles, make sure that people are acting as this. For example, this task will get me closer to the goal, so I'm doing it. They have this kind of slogans instead of this is my responsibility and this is not. Usually in big organization, that's a huge problem because people have like really strict job descriptions and they are just doing whatever is written on this piece of paper. And controversially, in startups, people are more enabled in terms of doing a lot more work than what is written in their job description. But again, let's say in startups, sometimes there can be some confusions in terms of role, who is doing what. Like, is this something that Scrum Master should be doing, or is this something that product owners should be doing? Kind of questions might arise. So you just have to create this team focus, the goal focus, so that, okay, if you can do it, then do it. If you want to do something else, then you have this opportunity, so that people are free in terms of how they are contributing to the goals. This is also really important, that they have this freedom and innovation to come up with really great initiatives and contributing to goals. So this sentence is something really very important. Giving your people autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy to be able to make these decisions, mastery to give them this opportunity to learn, grow, share knowledge, and the purpose. So the goals that we were talking about, like why they are here, what they are building, like what is their goal. These three things, if you can provide to your people, to your teams, then they will give you much better results on the other hand. And so, Anna, we have witnessed this kind of situations so many times where,
Yes.
where people are really hesitant about what they are doing, or they are not learning, or they do not have a goal. So maybe
For sure.
you can just bring some example.
It's funny because I can vividly remember something related to this situation when we were actually working together in a team, and before a major product release, I don't remember what it was, but the whole team, including the developers, the product owner, you as a Scrum Master, and even designers and whoever, were helping to test the latest version of the application, because that was what was the most important at that moment. And it was about to go live, and it was hard to imagine actually someone saying in that situation that this is not my job, or I don't have to do this because this is not in my job description. And this approach and this flexibility and involvement allowed us to actually make sure that all major issues were found before the application was available for our users. So it was definitely a win for our team. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, that if you have this kind of flexible roles and flexible structure, you also avoid the situation when people point fingers to each other and say, you didn't do this because this was your responsibility and you failed it. You don't have the situation because in this case, the team failed, not only one person.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I remember that time.
Yeah.
By the way, just want to take a break here and say that whoever is watching us, please leave your comments in the comment section. You do not have to wait until the end of the webinar. So if we see that there are some comments or questions, we will just respond to them very quickly. So yeah, you are free to do so. Autonomy, Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Yeah, let's move further then with the tip number 4. Maybe Anna, you can just take it over from here.
Of course.
Yeah, regarding the Agile values and principles.
Yes, and we reached our tip number 4. And it is having trouble evaluating your next initiative, map with Agile values. And continuing on the topic that Anna was talking about, the business agility, we often receive a question from companies, both established and startups or smaller teams, after they have successfully implemented the Agile transformation. They're saying like, okay, we are now successfully implementing Agile practices. Now, what's the next step for us? Where do we need to grow from here? And for some companies, this can be a dangerous situation because you may notice some stagnation in this process, and it is very easy to fall into old patterns of doing things. So to prevent this and keep your business agility intact, make sure that all key decisions are aligned with Agile values. First of all, I would say utilize and do not neglect the value of retrospectives to constantly evaluate where you are, whether your initiatives, whether the initiatives you started are serving for you, are working for you, whether your team is growing and developing, or you are just constantly repeating the same old mistakes. And one of the most effective retrospectives that you can do is actually organization level retrospective or company level. where you can make sure that all teams and all departments are present and are sharing their experience in Agile implementation. The best practices are shared, and overall the whole company is aligned in the implementation of Agile, and everyone is basically moving in the same direction. Another great tip is creating improvement plans for your employees, again, based on Agile values, to improve the areas that need attention. For someone, it can be working on their communication, or for someone else, it can be deepening their knowledge of the product, or maybe working on the effectiveness of their team. In any case, having an improvement plan will prevent your team members from stagnation in Agile implementation process and ensure constant growth, both on team and individual levels. And finally, every day, encourage your leadership and team members to evaluate every decision from Agile values perspective. If I need to clarify the details of my task, should I write a formal email, or should I directly approach my product owner and have a face-to-face conversation with them? Or do we need to set up this weekly work status checkup meeting, or when instead we can refer to Agile value that is encouraging us to empower our team and trust them to get the work done? So these are the questions that you need to ask. And in conclusion, whether it is a minor everyday decision or it's a major company level initiative, always ask the question, is it aligned with Agile values or not? This way, you will make sure that you can easily understand the direction that you're going, and whether you're in the right track to increase your business agility or not. And Anna, I would like to hear any input from you.
Here, by the way, very good examples. I just wanted to add here that, regarding the organization level or company level retrospectives, do not be afraid that you have to do, the retrospectives as you do with your teams. If it is for executives, for example, you can pick the appropriate format. Usually, like creating an improvement plan for your Agile organization can be done within a retrospective. Everyone just can say out their word about like what are the challenges they see, what should be the improvement areas. You can vote on the best decisions, and you can just take actions from there. So you can just pick the appropriate format for this kind of retrospectives. Also, it is good if you have, for example, many different teams working on the same product. In that case, doing like a global retrospective is also something that, might really create big value for the team and for the management and for everyone on the organization level, because they will see like what are the dependencies they had in between, how the DoD, for example, definition of done was organized, or what are their working agreements, how do these teams collaborate with each other, etc. So that was something that I wanted to mention here. Okay, great. So we move to the tip number 5. And this is, again, one of my really beloved areas of shifting the managers to leaders. Of course, as you can imagine, like we have more managers, like manager type people, when we have bigger organizations, because we have different layers there. We might have, I don't know, portfolio, program level, project level, things to do, and solution level, business level. So it's the complexity is much bigger. So we might have a lot of managers, and then these managers might have their managers, and so on and so forth. So the hierarchy here can be really huge. But in comparison to this, in startups, we do not have that much, hierarchy, and the managers here are more like people who are, working towards leadership. But here again, we might have the lack of experience of how to do that. We might do a lot more mistakes rather than in bigger organizations where the knowledge is there. It's just too heavy to make the steps.
Mm-hmm.
So these are kind of like differentiators here. But what is really, really important when you want to shift your managers to leaders is just to ask, like a couple of questions and to evaluate them from the perspectives of these questions. And the first one is, what is the depth of the purpose within their initiatives? Let me just elaborate more here. Your like managers are all constantly coming up with initiatives, but here coming up with an initiative is not enough. You should evaluate like from management perspective or executive perspective. You should evaluate what is the magnitude and type of changes that are included within these initiatives, and actually what type of initiatives do they propose, and are those initiatives actually bringing benefit to the company. So it's really important that you go deeper into this. Also, do your leaders or managers know and communicate well with your stakeholders? Are they able to solve any problems or communication issues if the stakeholders have? This is also very important question. The third one is, how well do they analyze the key problems? Are they actually ready to relate these key problems to already known, key issues on the organization level? And are they actually able to provide solutions against the data, the objective data, and multiple perspectives that could be there, within the company? So this is really, really important to relate all of these things together. And when we are analyzing the key problems and, to come up with solutions that are not just our perceptions or just our vision, but we are able to analyze the whole context. And of course, the last thing is, how quickly do they grow? And are they actually seeking feedback? Okay, so with the seeking feedback, we do not mean that, that you go and ask everyone, what do you think about myself? Yeah, so it's not about that. But accepting feedback as something, that will help you grow is essential. And usually managers are not doing that. Usually they are expecting this from their employees or teams, but it is hard in terms of authority maybe or status to do this kind of things. But what we've seen based on our practice, that the better the person is in terms of dealing with the feedback, the better leader this person could be. So this is something that, again, you should focus on. And again, maybe this is something trivial here, that management should act as a role model, because this is the way that they are increasing the trust among their employees, and they should be leading by example. But the second sentence here, I want to mention it because, again, we have heard many times from management that when we're talking about being agile, they say, okay, we are open to changes. Let's do it. Okay, who is doing what? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the approach. But what we say is usually it's not enough to say that I'm open to changes. You have to do the work by yourself, to understand this change, to feel it, and only after that to expect it from your team or, your employees. So
Mm-hmm.
this is something really important.
Definitely. And I wanted to add here, and I think you would agree, that we notice that the most, for example, if we talk about from change perspective, the most successful agile transformations are happening in the teams where management is actually acting as a role model and showing the team members the way how it should be done. Not just, saying, as you say, I'm open to changes and just locking the door of their office and, going home, but just rolling up their sleeves and really embracing that change, even doing things that are unusual for them, are not in their job description, are not part of their expertise, but really accepting this culture of even accepting feedback, accepting failure, but showing the others that it's okay to be like this, and that's when the most successful changes happen in the company.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, we are moving to the tip number 6, and
Tip
this
number
is
6.
reflecting on your data.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And this is one of my favorite tips because
yeah,
I
yeah, I
personally,
know.
because I personally love working with data, and but actually oftentimes I see, especially recently, that data can be misunderstood or somehow misleading when you are in an agile environment. Even in well-established companies, that they can gather immense amount of data, but they can't get to the root of things because of the volumes of this data, or because of overcomplicating the figures that they get. And for startups, for example, in their chaotic environment where every day something changes, they're focused rather on delivery, and sometimes the data is neglected a bit. And what we're going to talk about here in this tip is what kind of data you need as an agile company, what kind of data you need to pay attention to, and how to make sure it is relevant for you actually. So first, I'd like to point out that it is extremely important, whether you are developing your own product or working with a client, to get data on delivery versus quality. So oftentimes we see teams paying attention on, okay, how many user stories or how many major features they have delivered within a sprint or within a release. But as long as you're not measuring how many issues or bugs were produced as a result of those features being delivered, you're not really getting the valuable insights here. So let's say you had a major release delivering several key features to your users, well anticipated features, but how many critical bugs did you have to address in the upcoming days or in the upcoming weeks? So these are the figures that you need to compare and pay attention to get the full context on your delivery, whether the quality is not being neglected. This is very important. And the next important part is focusing on innovation and contribution to overall product goal. You should always review your recent iteration and see the results, see whether you mostly focused on delivering improvements maybe and fixes on already existing features, but there was nothing new in those iterations, no new features or no new functionality. So ideally, your iterations should be balanced in a way that you should plan new features, enhancements and improvements on your existing functionality to make it smoother, but also always include bug fixes and making sure that you're keeping your technical debt under control. And finally, always pay attention to intangible data. In Agile, this is very important. And in some cases, it can be even much more valuable for you, especially when it comes to team health and management and team dynamics measurement. If you need to understand the problems in your team, instead of asking people to fill out surveys, it is much more beneficial to, for example, attend the retrospective meetings if you have opportunity, or read the retrospective notes later on, see what really bothers the team members, see what their motivation is like. And in this case, you will get much more context, much more information, which has background, and it will be much more accurate representation of reality rather than a generic answer in a survey. So always make sure to get the context from both tangible and intangible data, and get the full picture. It will allow you to get the full picture of how things are in your company. Anna, maybe you have some additional tips here.
Here, regarding the, I just have two things here to add. First one is regarding the team health and the retrospectives and the reporting. There are also plenty types of team health radars that can be useful. Instead of doing the survey, it's kind of a radar where you put different aspects of the teamwork and just evaluate that based on the people's feelings and the data they have. And this might help you better to understand like where your team stands at this point. And regarding the reporting, in my practice, I have seen many times that, for example, management is requesting reports on the daily stand-ups, like what they have completed, or they are requesting reports on like retrospectives, even like what are the improvement areas, etc. And I always say, if you just want to know what's going on, just go and talk to the team. Just go and attend a daily stand-up. Just listen to them. Just see what they are talking about, or just do this org level retrospective, just to talk about all the issues that people have. And the best companies, like the most progressing companies now, are using actually this approach, because reporting, if not reflected if the data is not really well thought, then it can be really misleading. The reasons might be really different. The reasons might be like a conflict between team members, which you cannot see within the report. It's not only because of the requirements are written poorly or estimations are wrong. So that's why sometimes reporting can be misleading here. But in terms of tangible data, I agree with you, Anna, that tracking quality and continuous integration stuff is really important. And regarding the velocity, the last thing is something that I want to mention here, is that velocity is not for evaluating like team efficiency. It is just for planning reasons. So let's just face it. And that's why sometimes when people come to us and say, we want to track individual velocity, I always ask one question: why do you want to do that? Like, what is the reason? If you want something, then just tell us and we will try to understand like whether there is another way of doing it. So yeah, those were just some thoughts that I had now.
Thank you.
So we are moving to the tip number 7.
Yes, the last but not least, tip number 7, and it is: product delivery doesn't end on finished code. And we're about to get a bit technical here, but I think this can be very beneficial for software development teams. And this tip is basically about how you organize your development lifecycle and DevOps practices in the context of your business agility. We saw on many examples, I think Anna will remember and agree, working with both big companies and smaller teams and startups. When agile transformation takes place, everyone is very excited, and the actual processes are actually very very well accepted and implemented by the team, but the development process is not catching up yet. So teams set up their first sprint, they plan the tasks that they have to take into the sprint, but they did not take care of how the work is actually going to be delivered, how it's going to be tested, reviewed, and approved, and all the practices that we really value from Agile's perspective. And our tip number 1 here is to make sure always that your development lifecycle is actually aligned with your product delivery strategy. If you need to validate the work that you're doing in a sprint, make sure that you have solid deployment structure. Make sure that you have environments to be able to test and approve the functionality before it reaches your users on the production. And to actually organize demonstrations and reviews for your stakeholders before you actually release the features. If you used to make production updates, for example, once in a couple of months, and now you have to do these updates every 2 weeks, you need to make sure that your development team can perform those updates independently. And ideally, it would be great to have a dedicated DevOps engineer for your team as well. Also, make sure you integrate the latest tools. There are plenty of tools for making sure the continuous integration is happening, and make sure your development team has all accesses and expertise and training, which is very important to work in continuous integration practice and deliver the product updates in the speed that is required for your product goals and milestones. Also, define testing strategy. Here's where the work is not finished on the code that is written. The testing is very, very important. And if you define a good testing strategy, which is not limited to only manual testing, you should set up tools and processes that ideally allow you to write unit tests, automation tests, also perform smoke testing and regression testing or integration testing before major releases if you need them as well, to make sure you really validate the developed functionality and it is really ready to be introduced to your users. And again, in conclusion, we can say that DevOps should not be separated from product delivery lifecycle. Delivery lifecycle should be always going hand in hand with the strategy of implementation, your product strategy. All of them should go hand in hand to promote sustainable process.
And I would add here, Anna, that here is really important. What kind of definition of done do you have?
Yes.
This is usually in most of the definitions of done that we have seen so far is that, okay, you have the design, you have the documentation, you have implemented the code, it is reviewed, it might even have, the unit tests are written, it is tested by the QA and done. Okay, so you have to understand that DoD means that this feature is potentially releasable, or this group of features, or this epic, or whatever, this user stories. So if we do not have the DevOps part included in the DoD, then we have a problem. If there are different teams working on different parts of the product, then make sure that all their DoDs that they have created for their teams, if you combine all of those DoDs, then you can have like a full one DoD, which is really practical and makes sense. And by completing all of the points on it, then you will get this releasable feature. So this is something also that makes sense to mention here.
Yes, thank you, Anna. I think having the definition of done, even for non-technical teams, is very, very important, and it's something that can align all your processes and bring them together. So whether it's related to this tip or another area that you're concerned about, always try to have this document, have this criteria for your team.
Yeah, that's true. DevOps is something that, again, it has a separate area. So we are not going to talk about it today.
Yeah, you can talk about it forever. It's a different webinar already.
Yes, but just make sure that this part is not neglected when you are doing your transformations into a modern, faster company. This part is also important, especially for software development companies.
Mm-hmm.
So those were our 7 tips that we had prepared for you today. I hope you got some ideas of how you can use them in your current companies, in your everyday life, to improve some of the areas that you have problems with. Right now, actually, I want to reveal the bonuses that we were talking about in the beginning of the webinar, and we will be ready to answer any types of questions that you might have. So the bonus number 1 goes about the free assessment. We have written about this also in the description of this event. And actually, it is in a very easy place. You just have to go to our website, which is primeproject.com. I think you will have the link in the first comment. And on the cover, you can see this big green button, like start your free assessment. And then you can just press it, and you will be able to evaluate your company culture profile and identify the improvement areas. So it won't take too long, but it is a very good way just to assess your company status quo. At the end of the free assessment comes the second bonus, which is, okay, me and Anna, we decided that we will give you like a free consultation, like 30-minute free consultation. As we believe that, especially after passing this evaluation, you will have a lot of questions, and we decided that we cannot just leave you halfway. So those of you who passed the assessment and have questions about your improvement areas, or you want to understand like what is the right path to take, and you are really serious about moving your company into this better state, then we are really ready to help you. You can just schedule a free session, just book a date and time from our calendar. But just make sure that you do this within 1 month from now, because this is a limited offer and this is going to be there only for 1 month. So that's all that we have prepared for you today. I really hope you enjoyed it. So thank you for joining. Do we have any questions?
I do not see actually any questions in the comments now.
Okay.
So I think probably the information was so detailed that no questions have arisen.
Yeah, probably. But you are free to do so if you want.
I think we can say that for those who will watch this video later on, you can also add your comments under this video, and we will make sure to get back to you and answer any questions you have if you're not watching live and you will be watching later on.
Yeah, we will going also to send a replay, and you will be able to just watch it again. Yeah, thank you, Anahit, for joining. Yeah, thank you. Thank you too. Okay, if we do not have any questions, then we can wrap it up. Thank you, Anna, for joining me today. So
thank you, Anna. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, so see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
And watch us on YouTube.
Bye.
Bye-bye.